A very good morning to all of you. Thank you for taking time to be with us this morning on the first day of the World Economic Forum in Davos for 2026. I'm Godfrey Mutizwa. I'm a journalist. I'm based in Johannesburg. I tell African stories and have been doing so for the past 40 years or so. So I've seen a few. I thought to begin the session, I'm going to be a little bit melodramatic. That's the way of the world these days, right? Bombast, rules. So I'm asking the question, boom or bust? I think that is the question that is facing African policymakers as the continent's young population rockets up. We're talking about 2.5 billion young people by 2050. In 20 years, we're not far. The African Development Bank says there are 13 million young Africans that enter the job market every single year, and they are fighting for 3 million jobs in the formal economy. And when you look at the decline in official development aid, you're talking 36% over the past 2 years. And the question we're asking is, given the scale of the drop and the pace of the drop, what will it be? I think it was it a couple of weeks ago, that President Donald Trump announced that the US was withdrawing from 66 UN agencies. There's little question, we have no time. In this session, we are proffering 4 solutions. Number 1, the African Continental Free Trade Area. Could this be the key to creating the jobs that the continent requires? Energy. We know Africa is short of power. 600 million people do not have access to reliable power. How do we solve that? And then, of course, there are the entrepreneurs who are working despite and in spite of the lack of policy support from many of our governments across the continent. So I am hoping that by the end of this session, we will have some answers, and we're also going to be drawing on the forums. This is the World Economic Forum's new evidence base. This is the state of social enterprise, unlocking inclusive growth, jobs and development in Africa. This is a report which estimates that 2.2 million social enterprises in Africa generate about $96 billion in revenue. And that's two-thirds of Africa's GDP, and 1 in 2 of those are led by women, and 2 in 3 by young people. There's something that is working. So how do we work with it? Let me, at this point, introduce my guests. To my left is the Honorable Ahmed Shide Mohamed. He's the Minister of Finance from Ethiopia. Minister, welcome.
Thank you.
Next to him is the Honorable Yusuf Maitama Tuggar, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Nigeria. Minister, thank you, sir, for your time.
Pleasure to be here.
And last but not least is Oduor Lungati. She is Executive Director, Shide, Inc. Welcome, Angela.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let me start with you, Minister. I've given the context of the number of young people who are coming into our job markets every single year. So I want to zero in and put it in the case of Ethiopia and ask what pathways, Minister, are you looking at to generate jobs? And what levers are you looking at in the most practical way to move forward as we start 2026?
Thank you. Is this thing working?
Yes.
Thank you. It is an honor to join this distinguished panel, as investing in job creation and the skills for young population of Africa and Ethiopia is more critical than ever. Guided by our comprehensive homegrown economic reform program 2, we have introduced bold and historic reforms, including the liberalization of key sectors and increased private sector participation. However, we face a pressing challenge. Our young labor force, with around 1.8 million new entrants each year, urgently needs significant upskilling to align with the demand of our economy. Where are jobs coming from today? 3 pathways already generate employment at scale. First, agri-food value chains. Horticulture and the coffee, agro-processing, livestock, oil seeds, and the cereals continue to absorb millions on farms, in aggregation, in transport, cold chains, and the basic processing. Productivity is, however, uneven, but the employment footprint is large, and there is potential to expand into on and off farm jobs. Second, SME, light manufacturing and industrial parks. Textiles, garments, leather, and agro-processing have shown that Ethiopia can create a large number of entry-level wage jobs, especially for young women, when production inputs are reliable. As an example, industrial parks in Ethiopia mobilized private investment and created over 90,000 jobs in 2022, with approximately 87% of these jobs held by women. Third, services linked to urbanization and connectivity. Construction, logistics, retail, healthcare, hospitality, and transport are among the fastest labor absorbers today. Within this ecosystem, aviation plays a catalytic role. Ethiopia's aviation industry is not only a major direct employer, it also enables entire services and production systems. What is a binding constraint to scaling inclusive jobs? It's not only a question of labor, ideas, or demand. An immediate binding constraint is the high cost and unreliability of production, logistics bottlenecks, and critically energy availability across the region. Firms cannot expand, and therefore cannot hire at scale. Despite the progress achieved so far, we continue to face human capital gaps and skills mismatches that need to be systematically addressed. What is the most practical lever you can move on 2026 to unlock it? Regarding this, the priority is jobs first, Africa Continental Free Trade Area Production Compact that focuses on the following. One, guarantee predictable energy. Forex and logistics access for job-dense sectors. Second, coordinating value chains regionally, not firm by firm, linking farmers, factories, services, and markets across borders. Third, lowering non-wage cost of formal employment, enabling firms to scale hiring without raising fiscal burdens. Fourth, strengthening foundational systems such as digital infrastructure and ICT innovation to support emerging high-potential sectors like digital services, fintech, and green technologies. Fifth, addressing human capital gaps in improving health, education, and skills, and creating a productive workforce. A large domestic market for pharmaceuticals, which are almost entirely imported, and acute health workers shortages suggest opportunities in basic pharmaceutical manufacturing and healthcare sectors. Six, on the other hand, unlocking financing and reforming the business environment is also another important area. And finally, we also need to invest in job-rich sectors and future-oriented skills. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Minister. Thank you. That sounds like a lot of work that you are talking about there. And I think we're all aware of the big airport that's being built near the capital. And then, of course, you spoke about the African Continental Free Trade Area. I'm going to come back and want to talk a little bit more, in more detail about that. Minister Tuggar, let me come to you. I was joking with him before you came in that it's not often that I say reform that's working, and I say Nigeria, I say South Africa, I say Ethiopia. The three largest centers of economic activity that we're seeing right now on the continent. It's a good story, but let's talk about how we accelerate that, right? I'm asking you pretty much the same question as I asked the minister here, and I am asking what extra levers you are exercising to ensure that the momentum that you are beginning to build is kept and is sustainable.
Thank you very much. So what we have focused on first and foremost under the Tinubu administration is macroeconomic reform. And we have pretty much gone very far on that. The indices show that. We've stabilized our currency. Foreign exchange is available. I can come to Davos and use my Nigerian card. So that
it's working.
First of all, it's working. You know, there's no limit. We have also removed subsidies, particularly petroleum subsidy. But at the same time, we have put in place regulatory frameworks, legal frameworks, there are laws in place, Electricity Act, for instance, that allows for you. So it's uncoupled distribution, transmission, power generation, and created opportunities for businesses, for private sector to come into any of the subsectors and set up and take advantage of that, I should say, decoupling, feed-in tariffs. But of course, there's a gap because you need to also sensitize private sector. They need to understand the opportunities that exist therein. And this is something that we also face in our regional economic community. So many legal and regulatory frameworks have been created, but private sector is sometimes not even aware of the opportunities of ECOWAS trade liberalization scheme, that you register your products and you're able to move them freely without paying taxes within the region. So all of that is going on. Where we see huge potential for job creation is, for instance, in business process outsourcing, ITO, GBS, because it would create. We're in a race against time. We are adding 3 million young people to our job market every year. 1 million graduates, 40,000 engineers. So. Then at the same time, within Nigeria, we've created the National Credit Guarantee Company because we see the advantage of and the multiplier effect of credit guarantees. We have also put in place a National Consumer Credit Agency, so it allows for credit history and all of that. So it's a nation of entrepreneurs, and putting all of these frameworks in place unleashes, the potential that has always existed. But then when you go down to the rural areas, to the villages, you also see a lot of things that are happening just by providing that enabling environment. So when we talk about renewables, we have private companies partnering with foreigners coming in, creating ecosystems out of local power, so that they come in with containers. They take advantage of the local material there to build mini markets. To bring in the farmers also to take advantage, create micro credit and micro banks so that they can have access to fertilizer, to renewed seeds and all of it. So these things are happening. Guna is something that is spreading in Nigeria at the moment. Guna is actually bitter melon.
Okay.
And that bitter melon is being used in agrarian communities. A lot of farmers are turning to growing guna, to growing the bitter melon, because they use the seeds for oil, they use it for lubrication of so many. They're manufacturing the local equipment.
But you don't eat it?
The equipment, you eat parts of it as well, but a lot of it goes to other uses. They use it also for fertilizer. Oh. So it's just versatile. There's so much use. So these are things that go unreported that are happening at that lower level that is creating wealth. But importantly, bringing the informal sector to the formal is unleashing so much wealth, so many opportunities, and it's because we can't rely on public sector to create the jobs. Private sector is taking advantage of it.
I take your point about the lack of information. In fact, research done by AfCFTA, the Africa Export-Import Bank, shows the lack of awareness about the opportunities and information on African economy is one of the biggest hindrances to companies being able to grow on the continent. Thank you, Minister, for those thoughts. Angela, let me come to you. So I wanted to tell you, those who are in the room, so Angela has gone through this thing and read the whole thing. And she did it, was that in one day?
Yes.
So this is the report that I was talking about. So Angela, I'm going to ask you to talk to us about that report. And I'm going to ask you to tell us why some of the things that are coming out of there matter, because you are on the ground. I almost called your company the United Nations of the private sector. You said you're in 160 countries.
Yes.
But the question I have for you is why you are not in all of the African countries another day. Let's get your key takeaways there.
I think, first, it shows that social enterprises are part of Africa's economy, and that is, it's a significant portion, right? Looking at some of the highlights from this report, 2.18 million social enterprises that are creating millions, tens of millions of jobs and contributing up to 3% of Africa's GDP, right? So it just goes to show that it's not just a traditional enterprise that is, a core part of Africa's economy. I think the other thing that's quite striking is, who's driving that growth? Nearly half, 1 in 2 of these social enterprises are led by women, right? And a third by young people. And these leaders are in turn creating jobs that are then going to hire women and going to hire young people. I think it also goes to show that you can combine business acumen and social purpose to create economic value and measurable impact that will then drive economic growth. When I think about it as someone who's running what you would call a social enterprise on the African continent, supporting different parts of the world, there's 3 things that I would highlight as, things that are working. That you're starting off with problem-led and people-centered innovation, that we're really grounding it in what challenges we are facing within our communities and having that drive what we're thinking solutions would be. Second thing would be networks and peer ecosystems. Yes, financial capital is important, but social capital is equally as important. So having strong local hubs, ecosystems, communities of practice where people can learn from each other is also really important. And third, technology as an enabler, not as the solution. Whenever it is accessible, it really is helping these enterprises to reach underserved communities at scale. It's enabling them to become more efficient and, look through new models of service delivery. Now, challenges, the report names a number of them. There's regulatory challenges, there's things around support, but I want to hone in on one that's really critical, which is access to capital and financing. I think more than 55% of the social enterprises that were interviewed for this report noted that as a major challenge, right? So, for us, you look at, there's a middle funding gap. You're either too big to get the smaller grants or what you call microfinancing, or you're too small or considered too risky for the traditional, commercial financing. And that leads you to be reliant on international funding or informal funding, which just goes to highlight the gaps in the local financing ecosystems. I think there's also limited appetite within the social enterprise, limited appetite, try and understand, the unique nature of these social enterprises. So, we're operating in markets where traditional businesses are operating. You have the INGOs, so how do you create or, how do you establish and sustain market presence with limited resources in such a competitive environment? So when I think about some of the practical levels, this is just one of them. Really look at how we can unlock patient and flexible financing for social enterprises. When it's the philanthropic sector, how are we providing unrestricted funding that can actually go towards meeting the operational cost for these social enterprises? For governments, how are we creating a conducive environment from the policy side? Are we also deploying financial instruments, could be grant challenges or seed grants? For private sector, also look at how you can give pro bono skilling, right? Give us your engineers for 6 months to 1 year that will actually actually help us develop these solutions.
Absolutely.
And there's
absolutely.
more in the report, so go and read it.
The ministers are listening, and I was looking at them when you were talking about what you need from a policy perspective. The time is not with us because I am going to give each one of you 1 minute to contribute your thoughts to how we use the AfCFTA to create jobs at scale. I'm starting with you, Angela.
I'll name one, but there are many. Make the free trade agreement real, not just for big firms, but for small and mid-sized businesses as well. So, simplify compliance, reduce that friction and red tape so that, we are spending less time navigating bureaucracy and more time actually selling and scaling beyond our borders so that our businesses can operate in different African countries.
I love that. I love that. Simplify compliance. Simplify compliance. Minister?
I'll tell you how not to use it. Do not use it as a vehicle for delivering environmental, labor standards, equity, and so forth, because that's not what it was designed for. It was designed for integration, integrating African markets. So if we detain ourselves on pushing the AfCFTA to deliver all those lofty goals, we're not going to achieve anything. Let that be the exclusive preserve of the national governments. Let the countries, let it be at the country level. The AfCFTA should focus on integrating markets, and it is through the regional economic communities, and digital trade is one way of moving fast. So let's get things done because we are in a race against time. We don't have time to waste with pedantic nitpicking, equator principle, this, that. Yes, by all means, let's have those standards, but let it not be too pedantic.
I think you're smiling, right?
Yes.
Because you're speaking to what you were talking about.
Yes.
Minister.
Good, thank you. To harness Africa's competitiveness levers in 2026 for inclusive job creation, we must adopt an integrated ecosystem strategy. Regionally, trade costs for Africa's agricultural and manufactured goods remain among the world's highest, so accelerating AfCFTA implementation paired with corridor and border performance management is essential to scale intra-African trade and job creation. Ethiopia can leverage AfCFTA to diversify beyond primary commodities into high-value manufacturing and services, but success hinges on cutting very high trade costs and frictions through trade facilitation and logistics upgrade. As you said, the current big airport project we are doing is going to even support Africa in terms of trade integration. Ongoing reforms, including shifting to WTO consistent custom valuation with authorized economic operators, are steps in the right direction and require sustained execution to translate into firm-level market access. The other is energy. As Ethiopia expands regional power interconnections, linking neighboring countries to the grid, and the single most binding constraint to industrialization and services expansion in the Horn of Africa begins to ease. Even GERD and our bigger dams are contributing significantly to energy in our region.
Indeed.
So also logistics is very important, and reliable, competitive priced energy is a foundation for manufacturing, agro-processing, logistics hubs, digital services, and cross-border value chains. For AfCFTA, this matters enormously. Trade integration without energy integration does not create jobs. But with power, connectivity, and logistics aligned, Ethiopia can anchor regional production networks, not just export of goods. So I think AfCFTA should become not just a trade agreement, but a jobs engine.
Absolutely.
In Africa, we also need to leverage our use by directing digital innovation towards solving local challenges. This includes agri-tech for food systems, fintech for SME, and digital platform for market access. Finally, we need to strengthen an ecosystem for youth entrepreneurship, providing the necessary finance, as well as creating small-scale border trade with simplified custom procedure, which is what we are arranging with Kenya for women living in border areas. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to pick up on the customs one because that's key. I have spent hours and hours and hours at our borders, whether it's Namanga or it's Bridge or it's Chirundo. I can tell you it's terrible, terrible. Thank you very much for your thoughts. I am very sorry I hurried you, but I am also very happy that we've been able to get pithy things that people can pick on and run with in their own particular areas. I'm going to open up the discussion to the floor and ask if there's anyone with a question or a comment they would like to contribute to please raise your hand. There should be a mic that's ready. We've got a hand here. Let's quickly move up. I've got 6 minutes to pack in as many questions as we can. Let's go.
Thank you. Ernest Darko from the Broadreach Group. We implement public health solutions, in particular digital and AI solutions on the African continent. My main comment is the importance of actually talking to innovators and entrepreneurs to actually understand what the barriers are that they're facing, as opposed to conceiving them without them specifically telling you what their challenges are. I'll just give you an example of 3 quick ones. In one country, I have to pay 25% tax on my revenues. This is even before I've taken out my cost. In another country, I'm not allowed to have data leave the country. It's not allowed to be in the cloud, right? So we're basically not allowed to deploy this AI solution effectively. Sure. In another country, we were providing patient SMS reminders, which was really improving patient retention. They stopped our program because they said you're not allowed to have the patient name and contact details because of data security and Protection of Personal Information Act. Yeah. So these are the kind of things, by the way, our company was hiring over 1,000 people. We end up having to let these staff go. These are jobs the jobs you're talking about that are disappearing because of these kind of policies, which to me are self-defeating. So really talking to us about this is practically what you go through is really important.
Absolutely. And you didn't name the country, so I don't know what to do with the ministers. I'm going to ask the ministers. I'm totally with you. I'll ask one of the ministers to respond.
No, but in Ethiopia, we have a structured dialogue with our business communities. Yeah. Regular dialogue, even international.
You listen to them and they tell you what they are
so
facing.
The comprehensive macroeconomic reform we are embarking on is basically to improve the macroeconomic environment so that we will have FDI, significant FDI into the country, as well as also develop the domestic business sector as well. So definitely we are in line in terms of listening. Most of the taxation reform, customs reform, enhancing the quality of customer administration and tax administration, those areas where we are working so that we can address some of the concern by FDI and other business in Ethiopia. Thank you.
Yeah, so the minister says he's listening. So hopefully it's not Ethiopia that we're talking about. Minister, very quickly.
We just unfurled our tax reform.
Yes.
We've completely overhauled our taxes so that you pay less corporate income tax, and trying as much as possible to create opportunities for entrepreneurs. We understand that because that is what we subsist on. You know? It's a nation of entrepreneurs, as I've said. And on the regional level, ECOWAS is doing a lot towards sensitizing. Like I said, the AfCFTA's building blocks are the RECs, the regional economic communities, which is why when Nigeria was chairing ECOWAS, we had the West Africa Economic Summit so that we can explain to private sector the legal and regulatory frameworks that are already in place so that they can take advantage of them. West Africa Power Pool, you know, and then of course the trade corridors, Abidjan, Lagos Trade Corridor, Abidjan, Dakar that we're working on, and so forth. Sure. So sometimes there's a gap between what already exists and what private sector and the entrepreneurs know.
Yeah, indeed. I've got time for 2 more questions. There's a hand here. I'm going to go to the ladies. I'm very sorry. You go quick.
Okay. Hello. My name is.
Let's actually take the 3 questions together so that we maximize time.
Okay. My name is Eniton Tejosho from Nigeria. I work with the Presidential Initiative for Unlocking the Healthcare Value Chain to increase local healthcare manufacturing. And I'm also the chair of Diplomacy, Migration, International Corporation, Abuja Youth Parliament, for context. So I want to ask specifically to Ambassador Tuggar, what are some specific platforms that can allow us to prepare young people to participate in global value chains? I want to know if you're, one, willing to work with the Abuja Youth Parliament to increase this, but are there any specific pathways within the system that you're currently operating in that can allow us to advance industry by investing in youth education?
Great. Thanks very much. Let's put there.
Thank you. My name is Lorraine Sibanda from Zimbabwe. I work with StreetNet International, which is a network of informal economy organizations in 62 countries. My question is, what are governments doing to aid the transitioning of the informal economy to formality in view of the boom in informality globally, particularly in Africa? We cannot ignore the vast existence of informality.
Absolutely.
What are we doing to harness the positives of informality and transition, as well as complement and grow the informal economy to formality?
Indeed, indeed. And she speaks about a very sad case. Zimbabwe used to be the other way around, 80% formal, 20% informal. Now it's 20% informal, 80% informal. Okay, final question is, she's here, sorry.
Hi, this is for Minister Mohamed. So Ethiopia has a large, skilled and financially capable diaspora that wants to contribute to Africa's job reskilling and job creation, but some face a lot of regulatory and bureaucratic barriers. But what is Ethiopia doing to help translate that capital and expertise into real local jobs?
Thank you. I'm constrained for time. I'm going to ask the ministers to be very brief in their answers. Angela, feel free to come in as well. Let's begin with the last question, Minister.
Thank you very much. For the last 7 years, as we have been implementing our homegrown economic reform agenda, and we have reached out a lot in terms of our diaspora communities, and the Prime Minister made a lot of tours globally. And most of the reform agendas which we are embarking on in the country is also benefiting diasporas. There are significant diasporas who are already investing and coming back, contributing to their skill, to their knowledge, their education, as well as also their capital in terms of developing their country. So we are developing the regulatory frameworks, the macroeconomic reform. We liberalize the exchange market, forex market, and we have opened the banking sector. So, we have opened and liberalized the sector for all, FDI as well as also for diasporas. And we have a special law allowing diaspora communities to be treated as domestic businesses, particularly those who are originating from home. So there is a lot we have done for the last 7 years, and they can benefit from this macroeconomic reform and improved regulatory mechanisms, and allows particularly geared toward addressing participation of diaspora communities. So most of them are participating, and we will continue to encourage them.
The word is reform, continuous reform. Minister?
So with a question on healthcare, I think we could have discussed this in Abuja, you and I. We were both in the same government, and but be that as it may. In our foreign policy agenda, we've got the 4 Ds. One of the Ds is demography, specifically dealing with people. And our missions are equally participating in that. They are actually at the core phase of that. So you can engage us through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, through the embassies, and also through the regional entities. Like with ECOWAS, you've got the West Africa Health Organization. I'm sure you know of it. So please visit me in my office. Let's discuss this. Informality to formality, we are achieving that through fintech. That's why we're churning out all these unicorns. You get a bank account, you go from informal to formal. It's happening by the day, and through identification as well. So there are so many different identification processes going on. Tax identification number, BVN when you have a bank verification number, and so forth. And then all of that is being coalesced under the National Identity Management Commission.
Absolutely. Angela, you have the final word.
Okay, I think for me it's just an appreciation that despite all the challenges that social enterprises have faced, be it on the regulatory side or access to financing, that they've been able to do a lot. right? And now there's a report that actually has hard data to prove that. So mine is a call really to the governments within the African continent to really look through and think about how you can work with the private sector, work with philanthropy to really help help these social innovators scale their impact. If this is what we're able to do in constrained environments, imagine what we can do in supportive ones.
Absolutely, thank you very much. And my final take, and it's just 2 points that I would like to make. Really, what I take away is that this is a positive story that is coming out of the continent for the first time. I think many times we come, we talk, and we talk about conflict, we talk about corruption, we talk about these challenges. Now we're talking about reform that is taking place and implementing real change and accelerating that real change through the implementation of the AfCFTA. So I'd like to ask you to help me to thank our panelists, please. And to thank you as well for your time and for your participation. Thank you very much. And to all of you who are listening online, thank you for your time. Goodbye for now.
Thank you.